In this video, I want to share with you how to attract amazing people around you. People who will be your true friends. People who will want to support you, be there for you when times get tough. Who will go out of their way to actually help you when times get tough. People who you will actually want to be in community with. This is something that is of utter importance these days as we are facing and moving through the challenges and the changes happening right now, interpersonally, within ourselves, globally right now. Things are changing. You may have heard this or feel this calling already that right now is a time to gather around in community. That this will be the future of the new earth, living in community with one another, not separate. Seems obvious, but not to many people, but perhaps it's becoming more and more imperative to you. And I hear this very often. People that I coach with are suffering a lot from this problem of like, I feel so alone. I'll hear this very often. I'm going through these changes, through this awakening inside of myself and my soul. I'm opening my eyes up to what's going on inside here. I'm growing, but I don't feel like I have anybody to actually talk to about these things. And so I feel so alone. This is an epidemic worldwide right now of loneliness, of aloneness. So how do you do that? How do you actually magnetize people to you and have these types of real connections with people? I'm sharing this because this is something that in my life I've actually experienced a lot, the flip side of this. I don't know why, it's just been how my life developed, but I've always had, wherever I go, even if it's a brand new place, I'll magnetize real people around me, really beautiful, deep friends, sometimes friendships that last for a lifetime and go very, very, very deep. And I believe that this is a skill that you can learn. This is a skill that is developed, and there's one central secret to it. There's many layers, but if you just get this one thing down, if you know this and you practice this, your whole life will change. So what is the secret? Well, it is this. Share the truth. Speak the truth and stop lying. When people ask you this very daily question when you interact with other people, hey, how are you? Don't do this knee-jerk response of, I'm fine. How are you? That's basically broadcasting to the universe, to other people, that you're closed, there's nothing here that you want to share, and pushing and rejecting other people away. You may not know it, but that's actually what's happening. The flip side of this is actually speaking what is actually going on inside your heart. And I know this may sound scary and a little bit crazy, but it's actually what everybody is longing for. When somebody asks you how you feel, how are you, actually say how you are. The one thing that I practice in my life that's different than 99.9% of people that I meet is when someone asks me how I am, or they connect with me for the very first time, I'll actually share what I'm feeling. I'll actually speak the truth. I'll be honest and vulnerable and share from here and tell them how I'm feeling, even to the extreme. I remember one day I was going through a very, very dark period of an intense heartache after a breakup. I was at the checkout aisle in a grocery store and the lady asked me, hey, how are you? I just told her the truth. My heart's breaking into a million pieces. I remember the look on her face was like, oh, well, it was intrigue and perplexion and not knowing how to respond. You know, I think eventually she said, like, I'm sorry to hear that or something. I didn't expect anything, but, you know, just taking it to the extreme in those moments. Now, of course, this is a learned practice because you will learn, your body will learn what types of people and what situations it's okay to go deep and what's too much all at once. You don't have to spill, your whole life story and what's going on with every single person you meet, but just actually say how you are. Like the other day I met, a friend of mine, and I was having like a really off day yesterday, and she asked me, hey, how are you? And I'm like, I'm not feeling too well. And it was such a shock to her system, like, oh, because people right away, they just expect this thing of like, hey, how are you? I'm fine. No, I'm fine too. And where can you go in that interaction? You can't go anywhere because you're just in this narrow path of like, here we are both being fake with one another. So let's just support each other in our fakeness. or else we both might actually feel what we're actually feeling, and some connection might happen, and that's too scary. So let's just stay closed. And that's what that whole construct actually is. And a magical thing happens when you actually open up, when you actually are willing to be vulnerable in the moment. You actually give permission for other people to do the same. And everybody is craving that. Even though it may not seem like it, everybody is deeply, deeply craving to feel your heart, and they're craving for authenticity and love and connection. And when you're real like this, it creates an entire new world of possibility for other people to join you in the interaction. It's what everybody craves. It's what everybody actually wants, to be real with one another. And you'll find very quickly that, certain people you open up to, they won't know how to respond or whatever. Some people just eject themselves out of the situation. But some people will actually be pulled into that interaction and go, wow, finally somebody that actually wants to share what's going on inside of themselves. I can't wait to interact with this person. That means I can actually share what's going on in my heart, and I really want that, because you're not alone. If you feel alone and isolated and just like this is the wrong planet to be on, you're not alone. There's billions of other souls that feel the same way, but we're all just terrified to take the leap to actually connect with one another, because we live in this culture that's been conditioned to project out to other people this identity that you're fine and that you're okay and that, everything is perfect. It's not. And this is by virtue or by default, because of the programming that we're having, through our cell phones and scrolling through Instagram feeds and Facebook feeds and all this stuff. And, you go on there, it's the surest way to get depressed. It's just to go on there and see how awesome everybody's life is, but yours sucks, Everybody just posts the perfect picture of themselves, the little cropped image of like, here's me smiling next to this thing. I'm actually having a shitty day, but, and so it's very easy to assume that everybody's perfect but you. And so when somebody asks you how you feel, it's almost like this obligation to present like, I'm okay. Please accept me. Everything's fine. I'm just floating above this mess of everything I'm feeling, but I don't want you to feel that, because I don't want to impose that on you. And I'm afraid that if I tell you what's actually going on, well, maybe I won't get accepted. Maybe it's not okay that I'm feeling all these things. Well, actually it is. And it's very important that you do share, because it frees other people to do the same. And what I have found through my life is the more I share, the more real I get with people, the more real, awesome people I actually magnetize into my life. And it's incredible. And there are some people that won't want to be in your life. And guess what? You don't actually want those people in your life anyway. Right? Like if the moment you start getting real with other people and people check out or it's too much for them, which by the way is really, really rare. But if they do, they don't really need to be in your life anyway. And you won't find out who those people actually are until you start actually sharing. Because when you start sharing, that's when the sorting actually happens. You see who actually wants to be in this close space of your heart. Until then, we can kind of have people around and create community with people, but it's very transactional. This idea of like, okay, well, if I want other good people around me, I'll just be a good friend and be good for them and try to offer value and service in their life. And that's very important. You want to offer value and you want to offer something to other people. But if that's the only frequency that you're operating from, it's also extremely limiting. It's very egotistical. It's this transactional reality with other people. And friendships are about a lot more than transaction, at least according to me. What I've discovered is that above the transactional value of a friendship, of what people can get from you, what benefits they can get from being around you, what they can learn from you, what people value more is authenticity and reality and actually sharing from the heart. If you can open up truly to the depths of you in the moment, then you invite other people to do that, and it's extremely healing for other people. And I hear all the time from people throughout my life, when I hear positive feedback, Casper, one of the most things that I really value about you is your authenticity and your reality and your ability to stay grounded in the moment and to actually bring presence into what is. And this is I think a rare quality right now in life, because we are so busy with our busy lives, running around and not trying to be there for one another. But the moment you actually are, you realize there's a lot less than you think. And what's more important than doing all those things is actually tuning into the moment and being there for yourself and other people. And when you do, things just get resolved so much quicker. Like, you will magnetize people that just want to help you with your life. And instead of stressing out and doing a bunch of crazy things to try to do it all yourself, you'll feel more supported. Strangely enough, when you let go of the guard around your heart and actually be willing to be vulnerable with all your shit, it's kind of like the universe saying, fuck, let me just help you out. Wow, it's not all yours to bear. I remember one of the most beautiful friendships that I magnetized into my life was around that same time I mentioned, when I was just going through this extreme heartache of this breakup. And my girlfriend of 2 years dumped me on my ass, and whoa, falling apart. It was the deepest love of my life, and I was just miserable for months. I could barely move because all the trauma that brought up into my system. It's quite an awakening. And I was just super real during this time. Everybody I met, I was just here's what's going on. And I don't know if I'll make it through today, but just here's how deep this shit is today. And one time I was at this gathering, and there was this other young man then, other young man named Sam there. Sam, if you're watching, big shout out to you. And he was going through something similar, but a little bit different. And I remember we met, and he's like, hey, how are you? What's your name? I told him my name, and he's like, how are you? Well, here's what's going on. I'm going through this intense, dark time. I'm questioning the very essence of who I am and all the identity that I ever known myself to be, and the pain is extreme, but I'm just breathing through it. Something along those lines. And I remember seeing, and you see this a lot, the spark in people's eyes, whoa, somebody actually wants to get real. Please, just leading in. And we hung out, and then my situation got a lot worse, and eventually he moved in with me and my daughter, and was just doing an exchange with me and helping cook for us, and just was the most amazing, freaking awesome friend. I remember we had so many beautiful experiences and things that happened that would have never ever happened in my life. Moments of joy and gratitude during the darkest periods of my life, where I could have just been alone, very, very alone. I was filled with that friendship and many other friendships, because I was actually willing to be real for a moment and actually share what is going on inside of me. And like I said, it gives other people permission to do the same, to actually open up as well, because you're dropping that condition, you're dropping those guards. And this is what everybody is craving. And so the flip side of this is, say the truth. And I'll come back to this in a moment, because it's got gradients of refining this, but it's a bit of a skill. But the other side is when people open up to you, which will happen because you're going first. And again, you have to go first. If you want other people to open up and be real with you, be real. Be the real friend first, and they'll know who they're talking to. People are craving it. And when people do, don't do this knee-jerk response when they start to share something uncomfortable or something difficult to hear. Aww, I'm so sorry for you. Aww, I hope it gets better. That's not what being a real friend is. It's kind of nice, but it shuts you down, because what it tells, how does it feel when someone does that to you? It might feel a little bit comforting, but when you actually start to wake up, it's kind of annoying, right? If I'm having a shitty time, I don't care that it's shitty. Okay, I want to be in it. I want to feel through it. I want to understand what the hell is going on with me, because I understand that I'm taking responsibility for my life and everything that I'm attracting to it. So I'm just want to be in this to grow, right? It's not it's a bad thing. It's happening to you. I hope it gets better. That's just kind of coming at this victim identity, kind of plastering a little victim over it, and playing mommy or daddy with somebody, and it's basically saying to somebody, what you're experiencing is wrong. It shouldn't be happening. You poor you're just a victim, and you're small. And this is not the truth. The truth is, we are all divine beings. We are all co-creators in this reality. We are very, very powerful, very strong. We can handle what life is throwing at us or moving through us. We can be strong together. And we're all here to remind ourselves of and hold ourselves up to that remembrance and that standard, if you will. Okay? So the best thing you can do for somebody when they start to open up is nothing. Just listen. Just actually listen and feel and reflect. The best way you can support somebody in grief, as I have learned, as Sam has showed me, is actually just listen and relate and feel what they're feeling. Like, wow, that's intense. And reflect on like your own feelings on this. And maybe you can't, just listen. Just be that space for somebody. And people will love you, and people will be attracted to you. People will want to be your friend, and people want to be in community with you, and people will trust you way more than if you did the other thing and start, patronizing people or anything like that. It just doesn't feel good. That's the flip side of it. Actually listen. And when you find is when you make these connections, an entirely different world of possibility and potential will open up in these friendships. Like I said, if you just meet, you're like, how are you? I'm fine. This is what's going on. I'm fine. I'm also fine. There's the very limited range emotionally of where you can go with someone from there. And the more you build up that false, foundation of relating, the harder it is to break out of it. And that's because when you say the truth, whether it's brand new interaction or one that's been there for 10 years, when you say the truth, when it hasn't been said in a long while, especially, there's this feeling of letting go of control. You don't have control because you don't know what will happen. Until then, it's like, well, I'll just say this, but I won't say that. I'll just pretend I'm this, so you see me like this. And that's like this little manipulator inside of you, manipulating the situation, the interaction to get what it wants, because it's scared of being judged or whatever, right? The moment you actually vulnerably share the truth with someone, especially in a romantic relationship, like, listen, this is how I'm actually feeling. I'm actually, feeling this way. I don't know what you're going to think about it. It could be terrifying, I know, but it's liberation. And you have no idea what will happen. And because you have no idea what will happen, the little manipulator just has no control over it. So it's gone. It's death to the manipulator, but it's birth and life to truth. And now God can move through both of you or all of you and create the wildest things that you would never have thought from that limited manipulator self. And you can both enjoy life and what comes out of it on an entirely new level that is impossible to predict. You have no idea where those experiences will go. It could lead to like a lifelong friendship. It could lead to some really healing conversations. It could lead to a brand new business. It could lead to romance and connection that, as you move through other people. And it's really explosive. If you like meet one person and you're willing to be real with them, they'll introduce you to all their other real friends, and before you know it, you're just surrounded by reality. Even in places where you initially think this is a desert, there's nobody here I could connect with, I'm just going to shut off and not be here, And I beseech you, if that's your experience, unless you live in the middle of nowhere, it's more likely because you're not actually opening up. It's not the environment's fault. It's your, it's because this is closed. You're not actually sharing, right? The other piece of this is when you share openly about what your experience is in life, there is this other program. Part of it's programmed. The other part of it is it just might be where you're at, and it's worth taking a look at. Are you sharing from the victim self of like, life is happening to me, there's all this shit happening to me, and I can't get through this? Or are you in that co-creative space of, I'm taking responsibility for my life, and here's what's going on? So if you're going through a dark experience or something uncomfortable, like I just gave the example of, you don't share from the victimized space of like, I'm going from a heartache and I'm just going horrible. Like If you do that, what will happen is you'll attract other victims who want to co-create the victim story with you and complain about life and just shit on other people in the world, or you'll attract people who are going to, abuse you, and you can continue the victim story. So if you're tired of that, take a step out of it, look deep into those patterns, and do a few rituals with yourself to actually take responsibility for your life and look into forgiveness and things like this, and start to connect deeper with your own feelings. Because if you don't, then you're going to just attract other people who want to do more of that with you. And that's not what real friends are. Real friends tell the truth, first of all. And the other thing is they will not allow you to believe in your own lie. So they won't let you perpetuate your own lie. And that's another aspect of relating to people. First, you build that aspect of saying the truth, but as soon as you develop that confidence in yourself, it goes inwards. It perpetuates like a snowball. Once you start saying the truth out there, it's harder and harder to not say it to yourself and to believe in your own bullshit and to believe in your own lies and to believe in the places where you still are a victim inside. It gets really hard. But there's always this victim identity inside of us that's like, got its grasp on whatever little victim story you're still holding on to, right? And it's like peeling that off of yourself. The more real you are with people, the easier it is to let that go. And harder sometimes when the last bits of it go. But one of the most attractive things I find in real friends is when, they'll hear your bullshit and they'll be like, you know what, I've heard the story a few times, but honestly, you're just still BSing yourself. Why don't you just end this relationship that you're suffering so much from if you keep complaining about it? Or, you know what, is that actually true for you? Does that actually have to be true and real, the story that you're telling me? What if it could be like this? And that's a little harder to do. It doesn't happen very, very often. But it's an aspect of relating, and it's something that people will appreciate you for deeply, because very, very few people will do that. Very few people will lovingly call out someone's lies in front of them in a way to help them. And when you do that, make sure it's always in a candid way, in a loving way, in a way where you don't expect them to do anything about it, all right? And magic will happen. And the same goes with sharing the truth as well. When you are sharing from the space of the co-creative space, you're not expecting anybody to do anything about it. You're not expecting any positive response. You're just sharing whatever's going on. It's the flip side of the victim. The victim is like, I'm going through this negative thing and I'm just, and I want you to support me and see my pain and see my identity so I can be seen in this pain. And the last thing the victim wants is, to not be seen or to not get the support in that identity. Victims will run away when you actually call them out. This happens time and time again. And you actually won't even attract those people once you're in this other centered place. But the real way to share it, or the light way to share your darkness, is, hey guys, or whoever you're meeting with, here's what I'm feeling. And it's not even about saying anything, but just in this energetic space of honoring yourself first. I'm honoring how I feel. I have no expectations for you of what you're going to do with this information. I don't want anything from you. My intention is friendships and reality and being honest, and then see what happens. Magic will unfold. And as I said before, coming back, like the refinement in this of our life is relevance, understanding what's relevant and what's not. You probably don't want to share your deepest, darkest secrets with a checkout girl at the aisle. I took to the extreme in that example. You're probably not going to share your whole life in that moment, right? Relevance. What's relevant maybe is just that little blip of information. And if somebody is leaning in and they want to learn more, well, it's up to your discretion how deep you want to go. You can say the essence of what you're feeling without going into the full depth of the story of the identity, because it's probably not that important, but just actually share who you are in the moment. It brings so much into the interaction. So much. And what I've learned is that the person with the fewest secrets in any interaction is always the most powerful person in the room. And I don't mean that in a way that like you have power over other people, but power in the sense of nobody can have power over you anymore and you're free. And that's actually power, because it's peace, and peace is the true power. When we're holding on, when we're guarding what we're actually feeling inside in these interactions, where we're actually longing for a connection, you can't receive anything. And so you're hiding things, and you think, if people know this about me, if people know what I'm really feeling, if people know what I really did, they won't love me, but they will judge me, But the flip side of it, the reality of it is completely opposite. Yeah, maybe some people will check out, and like I said, it's so rare from my experience. Most often than not, people will applaud you, they'll lean in, they really respect you. Probably some people will be scared to go there with you, but the more you can hold the space for that, the more they'll be like, wow, this is interesting, I've never experienced this kind of relating. It feels so refreshing. The people who will run away, and this is really interesting, the people who will run away are the people who are genuinely terrified of looking at their own darkness, which is good for you because you'll be surrounded by a lot of light and love. And people who are terrified of looking at their own shit and looking at their darkness, they'll be repelled from you, like just running. Even if they have something with you, they'll like do it in secret and like run away, because they will not be able to confront that consciousness that is so comfortable confronting oneself. When you become comfortable with sharing yourself and looking at yourself, you'd be amazed at how the frequency around you and everything rises all at once. That's been my experience. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you got value out of this video and learning how to connect with people from your heart deeper. If you'd like to learn more about connecting with your heart and magnetizing awake people around you, here's a couple of videos here that are relevant to that topic. Until then, my name is Casper. See you next time. Also, if you want to sign up for my newsletter, find out more about what I'm doing, check out the links below, and make sure to subscribe. I publish more and more videos like this all the time. See you soon.